I fully believed it was too late for me. I did. I believed it was too late for me to change. I believed it was too late for God to break in and to change the patterns of my mind, desires of my heart. I don't like the person I see in the mirror, and I am accumulating exponential regret. I just accepted for years, this is who I am. This is who I'm becoming. I prayed a dangerous prayer. I said, Jesus, do not let me move from this chair until you bring that fire back in my heart. For whatever reason, in that moment, the Lord just, boom, like electricity through my body. I feel the fire coming back. I'm like, all right, God, I will do whatever you tell me to do. And then he said,
welcome to Called Beyond, a Novo Mission podcast. We love sharing stories of how God calls ordinary people into his extraordinary mission. In this third season, our theme is Courageously Take Root. Jesus invites us to be deeply grounded in him so that our lives bear lasting fruit. Fruit that multiplies far beyond what we could produce ourselves. Together, we'll explore stories of courage from Scripture and from today, learning what it looks like to take root in God's love and live boldly for his kingdom. Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the Called Beyond podcast. Man, so many of you have been writing in, chatting, talking about how these stories have been impacting your life and the encouragement that it's been. I am so thankful about that. And I'm encouraged too. And I'm super excited for today's conversation with Zach Duke. Zach is married. He has 5 kids with one more on the way. He lives in Indiana, where he and his wife help to steward a couple of kingdom businesses. Zach's on staff with Big Life, a disciple-making organization, and routinely speaks all around the world. Zach has been seeing what reckless obedience looks like the past 4 years, and I'm sure we're going to get a chance to dig into that story today during our episode. And a fun fact about Zach, and I'm actually curious if I am talking to Zach right now, is that Zach is an identical twin, and he was just talking about some of the swapping antics that he and his brother would do growing up. So, Zach, I think, welcome to the podcast.
so honored to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, man, I am too. So, a little bit of history between Zach and I. I met Zach a couple of years ago leading an activating prayer cohort. A prayer training that you guys have heard us talk about several times during the podcast. And Zach was one of those, he was a frequent sharer after we would do kind of homeworks and debriefs and how did it go. And I was always amazed by how he would very quickly apply what it is that we were learning during that cohort. Zach has been leading a long pursuit of obeying God in a similar direction. And so thankful that you're here with us today, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as you guys know, and as you're probably expecting me leading into, is we have another passage that we're going to use to springboard us into a conversation today. And I look forward to hearing what it is. Okay, here we go. It's John 13, verses 1 through 17. So bear with me here as we go. A little bit of a longer passage. So it was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." "No," Peter said, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, Those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." He knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them."
Mm.
Thank you, Lord. Yeah, as I read that, man, what a great example.
Yeah.
Is there any part of that, Zach, that just sort of jumps off the page to you? Anything that's just like, oh man.
Yeah, there two things that jumped out to me right away. One right at the beginning, like Jesus knew what was in man, what was in Judas, and he knew what was to come just in the next few days with the cross. And he was still pouring out himself for them. He loved them to the end.
Mm,
And that one, that's mind-blowing to me that I would have been afraid. I would have been terrified. I would have been thinking about myself, but he kept his heart and his eyes on pouring himself out and loving them to the end. But what stuck out to me even more than that is in verse, what is it, 3? Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from where he was sitting. So that was like I've never thought about this before, but
mhm.
because Jesus knew who he was absolutely free to not perform, to not think about himself, and he could give himself away without trying to posture himself before others to be a certain amount of reputation in their minds because he already had validation from the Father and who he was. And that just really hit me because it's our flesh wants to constantly posture and reputation management and do they see me? Did I get credit for that? But if
Yeah.
we know who we are in Christ, we will take the towel because we need no validation from man. We're ready with the highest validation to give everything away, and that just struck me just now.
Yeah. As you mentioned that, looking at it, like Jesus, in all of his confidence, knowing his identity, knowing who he was, his next act is part of it's just like embodying his identity
Yeah, that's right.
as a servant, as one who submits and one who takes care
Mm,
of, one who looks out for, one who, in a way, reverses all of the empires of man and all of the things that's, the many support the top. It really was the upside downing of that
yeah,
pyramid and just
yeah.
saying, I am here to support, I am here to serve.
It's razor thin on is this doing my duty or is this loving the king because we've all heard probably this story many times. Grab a towel, be a servant, wash their feet, and we can do that out of this heart and mindset of this is the right thing to do. This is our dutiful thing to do. But that's not the heart posture that Jesus is saying here. He is showing them an example of the kingdom and of the Father, and it's that same heartbeat that if we are just going out and doing good works for the sake of the good works because it's the right Christian thing to do, we've kind of missed the whole point.
Mm,
The whole
wow.
point is oneness with the Father allows him to flow through us and to spread his dominion, his kingdom, his nature, his character around us. But if we're trying to focus on the good works, we just miss it.
Yeah. And Peter's response, too, is also candidly, I mean, it might be how I would respond. I don't know. It's a little bit like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What what are you doing in like you can actually I love this about the gospels. Like so often it's just like either maybe this is just me, but it's like I feel like I know what's going on in Peter's mind as is recorded what he says and what he does. And I'm a little bit like you can see the wheels turning as Jesus says, "Hey, if I don't do this, you've got no part in this." He's like, "Well, in that case, do it all,
Yeah.
like I want everything."
Yeah.
And I just wonder, the posture of that is, one, there's just sort of abandon in it that I see. And yet Jesus actually doesn't say, "All right, let's do that." Right? It wasn't a, this is greater obedience and
Mm,
therefore this. It's like, no, submit to what is right in front of you.
yeah.
And that's what's needed for today. On one sense, that's just a fascinating position, right? And obviously, Peter's recorded as doing this. Everyone else kind of let it happen. And I'm just curious, Zach, have you ever had your feet washed?
I have, yeah, a few times.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I've been on the other side of it as well.
yeah. It is an, well, the one time and the first time, for me, it was the most out of body holy moment type of
Mm,
experience I think that I had ever experienced. I was in Brazil in a place called the City of God, which is this famously violent slum where we were on a service project. And the women who had been serving us our meals, taking care of us the whole week, the very last night, we were in an upper room. There were gunshots going off, like areas of the slum, and these women got down and did this act for us. And we were a
wow.
construction company down there doing this work, and everyone was bawling. It was like the act of humility is one of the most powerful forces.
Yeah. Yeah, that is there's really nothing like that of taking on that posture of humility and doing it genuinely. I remember the first time that I got my feet washed was on a mission trip to an Indian reservation back in, like,
Mm,
2007, and it was a similar experience for me of just having them wash my feet, and what was going through my mind was, "I'm not worthy for them to do this," which is, on a different sense, similar to what Peter was saying. Yeah, it almost felt like this should be the other way around. Why are you doing this for me?
mm,
And that's when the Lord just kind of came over me and just reminded me, like, this is what I have done for you.
mm,
And
yeah.
so receive it. Receive what is being done for you as an act of humility and love and mercy.
That's so good. Yeah, that same feeling of, I'm here to serve you. You're not here to do this for me.
Yeah.
It's like it's just raw in there. Yeah, I think too, having known kind of your story, at least the current one that you're in, we've talked about on the podcast a few times how I feel like the great stories of God begin with, if you would have told me 4 years ago I'd be fill in the blank, I'd tell you you were crazy. I feel like that's the story of Paul. That's the story of Peter. That's the story of so many people who
Yeah.
have one foot in the I remember what life was like and now is so different. Like no one is more amazed and surprised but me. And I feel like you're kind of on the edge. You've been on the edge for a while of this wild story that God has been authoring around you, and you've gotten to play a main role in it, the main role in it. And I know there's a lot of characters in there as well.
Yeah.
But I would love, Zach, just to release you to tell a bit of your story in light of this passage. Maybe use this passage as a little bit of a muse, if you will, to see how this humble obedience has just sort of trailed with you as you've said one yes after the next, as you found courage in your own life and through the story that you've gotten to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll backtrack a little bit and then fast forward quickly. There was a significant moment in 2008 where, long story short, I'd hurt my knee. I like tore my meniscus, and when it was torn, I was working at a summer camp, Christian summer camp, and I went to go jump in the water, and I thought it was deeper than it was, and it was
Mm,
actually like half a foot deep. So I jumped in really hard and hurt my knee again. And so
mm,
I get out, I'm limping to the cabin, And when I get in there, I just hear the Lord's voice. He says, I want you to go out to the bonfire pit, which is like a quarter mile away into the woods. And I want you to go out there. I'm like, that makes no sense. I'm like,
Very
but
insensitive. It's a
yeah,
very
I'm just like,
insensitive ask.
I'm just like, what? And why right now? So I'm like, all right, I'll go. Let me change and I'll go. He's like, no, I want you to come right now. And I'm
Mm,
like, what? And so I'm limping out there. I'm irrationally afraid of bears in the Smoky Mountains. And I'm like, this is a horrible idea. And I get out there and I'm like, nothing happens. Absolutely nothing. My God, why did you drag me out here? Am I not hearing correctly? And then he pointed out this tree way out in the distance, like, I want you to go all the way to that tree. So I
mm,
limp all the way to that tree and I'm standing there just feeling like an absolute dummy. Like, why am I here? And the spirit in just a still small voice just spoke and just said, I want to know if you will go all the way from me, no matter what I ask
mm,
you. And I just remember starting to cry in that moment. I'm like, yes, Lord, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And no strings or reservations attached.
mm,
And so the Lord he's taken me up on that again and again of different moments in my life of will you obey before you understand?
mm,
And I never proclaim to be humble or doing things out of humility. I leave that in the hands of the Lord, and I can grow more humble every single day. But there definitely was a resolve and a commitment that if you speak, Lord, I'll do it. And I don't care if it makes me look foolish. I don't care if
mm,
I'm humiliated. I don't care if it all, if we die in the fiery furnace, right? If you don't save us, but I will obey. And so, long story short, moving forward to the last 4 years, I got really sick for a number of years. The Lord ended up healing my body miraculously. That's a whole nother side story. But at the end of that season of being sick for so long, I had gained 40 pounds. I got out of shape. I had got out of discipline mentally and not a great place. And just not like demonic darkness, but a lot of like definitely despairing thoughts and depressed thoughts and not in the crazy way, but enough that it affected me on a day-to-day basis. And so I had this come to Jesus moment literally where I went out to a coffee shop. I'm like, I need to listen to something that can just get my head and my heart, my spirit back in check. And so I'm listening to this podcast for Christian men, and this guy on the podcast was saying, why have we have dads accepted the status quo? Why have we accepted the dad bod? Where are the few men that are willing to break out of American comfortable Christianity and to be warriors, trusting in Jesus and His Word and His Spirit to the nth degree, to literally go to the edge, physically, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, and give Jesus everything? And as I was listening to that, I'm like, I'm not that man. I'm not that
mm.
man. And so I sitting there, I realized if I got up from that chair and didn't change, I never would. I
Wow.
believed that. And so I prayed a dangerous prayer. I said, Jesus, do not let me move from this chair until you bring that fire back in my heart. And I've been praying things like that for years, but for whatever reason in that moment, the Lord just boom, like electricity through my body. I feel the fire coming back, and I know that it's happening. Like I know that it's happening. I get out my journal. I'm like, all right, God, I will do whatever you tell me to do. And then He said soccer, and I'm like, okay, God, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And I'm like, because surely it's not soccer. And He's like, no, soccer. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And so I began thinking and dwelling on that just in that moment and was thinking, okay, when I played football at Liberty, that's when I had the best discipline, time management, intimacy with Jesus, you name it, like just crushing it on all cylinders. But soccer still made no sense. But then He reminded me I was going to Asia to be with some big time leaders in soccer who are using the sport to plant underground churches in
Wow.
153 communities across 5 nations. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If soccer is the low hanging fruit for the sake of the gospel access into any people group, then I'm 100% in for that. But remember that the whole point was in that podcast was to push myself the farthest to be the man, the husband, the son of God I'm meant to be. So if you want me to pursue soccer, I need the crazy, impossible, delusional goal that will push me to my edge. And so that's when I had the crazy goal of making it to the World Cup in 2026. And this was the end of 2022 when that happened. So long story short, we can get into the details of that as much as you would want. But I went from never playing in my life at 34 years old, no middle school, high school, no club, no college, never played pickup, like never played. And I went from playing rec league to amateur to getting invited to play in Brazil, to playing for the 7-on-7 world championships, playing for USA indoor against Mexico, got drafted by a pro team in LA and played for a season there. And then this summer I got called up for the 6v6 World Cup in Germany with Team USA. So God really took the small little kernel of nothing, and when we put it in his hands, he just does extraordinary things with it for his purposes.
I don't know. I don't know if you guys caught that, but Zach went from in the story, right? I want to tell the story accurately. You went from a chair with headphones on in a coffee shop, zoning out, finding inspiration, 40 pounds overweight, unathletic, not unathletic, but
At the
you
time, I
let your
was for sure.
you had let
Yeah,
yourself go, basically.
yeah, definitely.
To it's been 4 years, maybe a little less than four
Yeah,
years,
3.5, 3. Yeah,
and you're playing in the 6v6 World Cup, having effectively never played soccer. I'm sure you kicked a ball at some point, but
maybe
like,
in gym class once.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so we went from like 0 to 100
Zero.
really fast.
Yes, it's the only explanation is the Lord. I have no other explanation. Like, yes, of course, I put in the work, I did the discipline, I did all of that, but this doesn't happen. It
Right.
doesn't happen. Like people my age can't pick up those skills, those muscle memory, getting that ability back, and then add on top of that opportunity and favor. Many people try. I mean, millions of people at various ages try to have things happen and have started, like millions of people even doing social media trying to make it happen, and it doesn't happen. So why the Lord allowed that to happen for me, I know without a doubt that it's for purposes way, 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 way beyond me for the sake of the kingdom and to
Yeah.
steward that accordingly.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I would love to go back to the probably less than comfortable coffee shop chair
Yeah.
if we can for a minute.
Yeah.
And maybe because I feel like maybe a lot of people listening to this story probably can relate to that feeling that you had.
Oh yeah.
The I thought there was more. I thought I would have this problem. I thought this, how many times have we sat and heard an inspirational message and thought maybe that could be true of me? And I love that you said, Zach, that's super honest. Like, I had made resolutions prior to this one, but maybe
Many.
talk to us a little bit more about like what was life like in that chair? What was
Yeah.
life like? You drove from home to that coffee shop. Like, I don't know if you like go back to that. Like, I this is what I was like.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Like every man and really person who's heard this story, it's so relatable because we all feel this on the inside. And so I was actually in Virginia at the time at my in-laws and drove to a place called the Plains, Virginia. The coffee shop's called Dopey O Bunny. Shout out. And I'm sitting in the chair, and the best way I could describe it is I fully believed it was too late for me. I did. I
Mm,
believed it was too late for me to change. I believed it was too late for God to break in and to change the patterns of my mind, the desires of my heart. That this was I just accepted for years. This is who I am. This is who I'm becoming. This is what God has for me. And those are just the twisted lies of the enemy that he wants us to agree to. So I was genuinely at a very dark place, and over the span of years, lots of different challenges, but truly a place of hopelessness and despair. But maybe more than both of those was the growing, nagging regret that I did not live up to the standard and the destiny that I know God called me to be and to have. And that's the part I think people it hits the deepest is only you, only me can know inside the the calling, the abilities, the gifting, the standard that God has called us to individually and how greatly we are not living into that 30-fold, 60-fold, and 100-fold. And when you project that out 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, it's easy to see I don't like the person I see in the mirror and I am accumulating exponential regret. And so that was my state in the chair of desperation, needing God to really, really break through or losing all hope. And so if I could boil down the lie that I was believing that many of us in our that we can relate to is I believe it's too late to fill in the blank. That's it. I believe it's too late. And one thing that the Lord has showed me over the last 3.5 years is really, I'll summarize Galatians 6:9 by saying this: if you don't quit, you win. It's the moment you stop fighting that you lose, that you fail. But if you don't quit, you already have won. That's literally another way to say faithfulness,
Yeah.
persevering. You just don't stop believing, you don't stop praying, you don't stop knocking. And yeah, so if we don't quit, we win. But that was the state that I was in that chair in that moment.
Yeah, I kind of have two questions here. So that I don't forget both, I'm going to say them both now.
Yep.
In this trail, this journey, the 3 years of persevering in the direction, in the pursuit of what God put on your heart, what were some of the things that came against you during
Mm,
that time where you wanted to throw in the towel? It wasn't going to happen. Flare ups, injuries, sore muscles, too tired, sickness, like all the things, too much travel. It's hard to practice when you're on, like, what were some of the things that were just like used to kind of maybe potentially derail you? And then the second is, what were the unconventional blessings
mm.
that pushed you to keep going?
Yeah, two amazing questions. When I started this journey, I knew that the Lord was going to have me face some serious skeletons in the closet. And those ended up being the things that wanted me to throw in the towel a lot. And here's what they were: fear of publicly failing in front of others, fear of being absolutely humiliated, fear of the opinions of others. Right. So you wrap all of that up. The Lord is like, I'm going to use this to crush the fear of man in you.
Wow.
And so that was what I was facing, and it's diametrically opposed with fearing God, and he exposed that in me of like, you're going to fail, you're going to be humiliated, you're going to like that's the cost of entry for this or anything that we do is that. But what caused me to want to throw in the towel a lot is realizing just how bad I was when I'm trying to learn new skills, or I go and play a pickup game or go play an amateur game. I'm like, why am I doing this, God?
Mm,
Like, why am I here? Why am I showing up? This isn't working. This doesn't make sense. And I remember many, many, many mornings when I would just wake up and spend time with the Lord. I would lay soccer down at his feet and like, I'm only going to keep going if you tell me to keep going. Like this is only for you. And without fail, every single time, just flooded with peace of like, trust me. And so that was a big one. And then the opinions of others has it's not as hard anymore, but for the first 2.5 years was very hard because everyone wants to have a say and opinion in your life. No one can escape that. And so 0% of me wants to say, well, they shouldn't have done that. That wasn't wrong. They weren't right. Because that's just not helpful, right or wrong.
mm,
What the Lord really showed me in those times when it caused me to want to rethink, are they right? Anything is I can only control what God has asked me to steward. I cannot control what others say. I cannot control what others do, but I can control my response and blessing to them. So at every moment, the temptation of will I carry offense or will I release and bless? And so that was a continual, almost daily thing for a long period of time. And then on top of that, what would help me keep going was one, like I said, listening to the Lord on a daily basis, but also my wife,
mhm.
who she was being greatly blessed by the man I was becoming and what I was doing with my family. So anytime she has no time for self-pity, and I love it. Like, she's not
Mm,
going to sympathize with me. She's like, "No, get up off your butt, get out there and train. God is in it. Like, stop feeling sorry for yourself." And the
mhm.
Lord knew I needed that in her. I needed she really completes me, and that just gave me continual courage, right? I've thought about courage a lot. And when I think about courage, it's just love in action, because courage by nature is doing something for someone else at the cost of yourself, which is love moving. And so my wife has very much been that for me and instilled that in me. So yeah, those were some definitely the things that made me want to throw in the towel. And remind me the second question. Maybe I already answered it.
You're working your way there.
Okay.
Definitely. But yeah, it was just sort of what are some of the
Ah,
unexpected
yeah.
things that really was gasoline on the
Yeah. Number one, relationships. Uh,
fire?
I am in awe when I look back at not only the people I've met that are unbelievably kingdom minded in the ministry field, the business field, the soccer field, that none of those relationships that are some of my closest, dearest friends I cherish now would have ever happened if I didn't go kick a stupid ball.
Mhm.
Like, the Lord opened up so many unexpected, so many crazy unexpected doors. I'll just say this. I had right before this, I was on a call with the For King and Country management team to do some collaboration with them because of soccer.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just things like that that make no sense of how would soccer open up doors for ministry more so than ministry doors open for ministry. And it's because God tells us to obey when we don't understand, and He's working out His purposes. And so that's relationships is number one. And then number two, abiding in Jesus more so than trying to force outcomes brings the best outcomes. That's what
Wow.
I have found. And
Yeah.
and so the Lord has really challenged me to not force anything, but to follow and obey Him. And so the biggest doors that have opened for me have been when I've prayed for people, or when I started a Discovery Bible study, or when I took someone on a mission trip, or like all within soccer related, or when I spent time helping people hear the voice of God. The Lord had used those things, just genuinely wanting to love on my friends. Those things have actually opened the biggest doors for me. And I didn't seek those things for the doors. In fact, those weren't even correlated in my mind. And so, big time unexpected blessings. Just as we abide, God works it way better, increase without sorrow, versus when we try to make things happen because we think it'll be good for God.
I'm seeing, Zach, this little parallel into our passage today because I feel like what you're saying is the moments of which you were the most, and I know you're not saying this, I'm saying this, so I think it works, but like the moments of greater humility where it's teaching someone something, it's sitting quietly, waiting for God to speak and encouraging them that you are hearing Him. It's taking someone someplace that they wouldn't be without your invitation,
Yeah.
right? These are, and this is the washing feet moments, right?
Mm,
These little washing feet moments are the things that have become great blessings, that have become accelerant to this process, that have built relationships where it's not about you trying to get something from someone
right.
to stair step into a greater place for your own, you know,
That's it.
fame or recognition.
That's it.
It's no, because I got low, because I stayed small, because I wanted to do this with you, is the authenticity that creates, the bold humility expressed. And like, you're not in control of these things, right? It's just, it's me following Jesus and watching Him influence the relationship that's right in front of me for for their benefit.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Like the Lord has used that to create opportunities for this story to continue to develop.
Yeah, and what's beautiful about that is when you begin to see, oh, I see how the kingdom operates in that way, exactly how you just described. It gives you courage to trust again at the next crossroads. Of like, you're forced with the same situation. I've seen God work when I abide and I release all things to him and I trust him with this. So I don't understand this. My flesh wants to force this. I'm going to choose to trust you again because you have proven yourself faithful time and time and time and time again. And so not only does courage and faith help in the moment, but I think it has a compounding interest effect, if you allow it to, of when he asks you for the next thing, that to keep your eyes on him, to make those decisions repeatedly. And that's also the difference between the religious spirit of serving and carrying the towel and serving feet versus doing it from a posture of humility and love. Like, are you doing it for the stepping stone, for the ladder, or are you going down and saying, I just want God's kingdom to come, whether I'm in the picture or not? And I think that's the test for all of our hearts is, do we want to be the main character, or is Jesus Lord? Like,
Yeah.
who's on the throne? And so I could totally wreck everything tomorrow if I think, oh, this story was actually all about me. I'd wreck it
Yeah.
in a single day of 4 years of miracles, because I'd have one day of idiot idiocrity of, like, no, like Nebuchadnezzar. He looked out on his
Mhm.
porch and look at all of this land, and then the Lord struck him that day.
Wow.
So the fear of God of continue in this way, trust him in this way. That's not lost on me.
Well, Zach, I want to ask you to do one thing for us as we kind of close down here. It's I'll describe the picture I have. It's you today looking back at you sitting in that chair. And if you could in some ways write a letter, or you are actually the podcast you're listening to. And I want you to talk to yourself. And I think by talking to yourself, you're actually going to be talking to each one of us in the part that we need to hear. Tell us what's possible for us. Tell yourself what's possible for you.
Yeah, yeah. I'll just share what immediately came to my mind. This is what I really feel like I would tell myself 3.5 years ago. I would tell myself, Zach, remember Luke chapter 5 when Jesus came to the boats, and he got in their boats. He entered into their domain.
Mm.
And when he was done, he said, launch into the deep. And that's a scary thing. I want to be on, Zach, you want to be on the shore. You want to play it safe. But Jesus is telling you to launch into the deep, even though you have been fishing all night and you've caught nothing, Zach. You've tried and you've tried and you've tried and you've tried and you've caught nothing. But at my word, would you launch out one more time? And they did. And they threw the net, and the catch was so great that their boats were sinking and their nets were breaking, that they had to call to the other people to help them. But the response, I think, is what I would tell myself 4 years ago. When you launch out into the deep, when you go one more time, when you follow his voice one more time, the response was they left everything and they followed him. And so I think trusting Jesus and seeing who he is in our lives leads us to abandonment because of who he is and who we are following. And so that's what I would encourage myself when I'm thinking, believing in that moment that it's too late. Launch out into the deep, cut the ropes one more time, trust Jesus in the unknown waters, and watch what he does when you launch out in faith.
Guys, I feel so honored to get to have these conversations, get to interview heroes. Feels a little bit Book of Hebrews, like the Hall of Faith, if you will. Sometimes when we're sitting here exploring different topics and themes and what people have seen God do improve through their own obedience journey. Very thankful to Zach for taking the time to spend with all of us, hearing his story, hearing the reflections on our passage today, and so many amazing nuggets that kind of came through those conversations. The ones that really stand out to me, kind of humble relational obedience how those things become the springboards to God's writing of our story, right? And I love how Zach is pursuing relationships. He doesn't know if this is the last step in his journey or the next step. And so whoever he's with, he's pursuing with the eyes of Christ and the mind of Christ, not for future gain for Zach, but so that people can draw closer to their Savior as well. And I know we didn't even get into a lot of the stories, but so many people have met Jesus as a result of this journey that God has had Zach on. And so that was so cool. I think even in Called Beyond, our podcast of what we're explaining, there's always this idea of what is the next yes that God is inviting you to. And I think with Zach's story, we have a very clear, we can almost see the lineage, the chapter titles of this yes led to that yes, which led to that yes, which led to this incredible place that's so far away from where the story started that we have to give glory to God. And I think even in that phrase where he was talking back to himself in the coffee shop, where he said, launch me into the deep. And that idea that it is not too late, it's never too late to see God do an incredible thing through your life. And so thank you so much for giving this episode your time, for spending it with us. And maybe if you're leaving different today, put a stake in the ground, have a conversation with God. Don't get up from the chair you're in until you feel that fire again. So as we close this episode, remember, you too are called beyond. God longs to grow in you a courage that takes root, endures hardship, and produces multiplying fruit for his kingdom. So we bless you in Jesus' name. May your roots sink deep into the love of God, and may courage rise within you to say yes to his call. May the courage you've heard become contagious in your life and in every opportunity before you, so that fruit you bear multiplies for generations to come. In Jesus' name.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Called Beyond is a production of Novo Mission Inc., a global missions organization committed to spark and sustain movements of the gospel among the nations. To learn more, we invite you to check us out on our website at novo.org or follow us at Novo Mission on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The music in today's episode was written by the band Wild Earth and used with permission from the artist. Thank you again for giving our podcast a listen. We hope you'll join us for more Called Beyond.